Welcome to episode 22 of the 15-Minute Coffee Podcast with Brandon Salazar, your go-to destination for expert perspectives and valuable insights from the world of business. Today, I'm here with Jehron Petty, the founder and CEO of ColorStack. And before we get into the podcast, I'd like to thank Mr. Petty for being a guest on the podcast.
Of course, thanks for having me.
All right, let's start with tell me about your early life and career that led you to where you are today.
Yeah, so how far do we go back? I started my journey in entrepreneurship and computer science around the same time, which led me to kind of study at Cornell and um start ColorStack and things like that later on. But I started all of that in high school. My junior year of high school, I started a business fixing phones. And I was already taking like an intro to programming course. So I think that early journey of one building a business where I was, charging for a service and had customers and um, learned kind of the ins and outs, the ups and downs of running your own initiative and at the same time learning the basics of programming and how it's been used to solve problems all around us. That kind of set a foundation in that junior senior year of high school to study computer science at Cornell and just continuously think in that problem solving business mindset, such that over the course of my 4 years, I was both progressing as a CS student and noticing that there was a problem when it comes to underrepresentation in computer science. And so that foundation led me to bring those two together and eventually start ColorStack, where I'm running a business as an entrepreneur for sure, but also it's related to the problem of diversity, lack of diversity in computer science.
Yeah, that's pretty amazing how you notice that you have skills in a certain area and you excel in computer science, and you used it to almost facilitate the fact that you know that there's a problem, you want to solve it, and then you almost became like a mix of two, an entrepreneur and like a coder. So
Yeah.
that's already a unique thing because a lot of people they have one or two and it's a gift. It's a beautiful gift to even
Hmm.
have one. So it's amazing
Hmm.
to see that you could even put them together.
Yeah,
That
for
goes
sure.
into the yeah, and that goes into the question of can you talk about a pivotal moment or decision in your career that significantly impacted your trajectory?
I mean, there's so many. Um, I think the one that's interesting is um an interesting story, I should say, is there's a community called Neo. It's like a VC fund with an accelerator. But what their core program was originally was this program called the Neo Scholars Program, where they would identify the top 8 to 12 computer science students across the country and basically bring them into community with a bunch of tech startups and tech veterans so that they could accelerate the careers of these students, right? Have them join startups instead of big companies, or have them start companies instead of joining a company as an engineer. And so the one of the folks that was on the recruiting team at the time, when I was a sophomore doing my first internship at Google, um, they reached out, cold email, said, "Hey, we're doing this thing. We want you to be. We'd like to invite you to apply. Here's what it is. You get to be in community with all these like CTOs and CEOs and early engineers at companies." And I'm like, this is probably a scam. So I didn't read the first email, or I read the first email, but I didn't respond. I was like, this is probably a scam. Then that person followed up again, and the second time, I'm like, okay, all right. If they follow up, okay, maybe it is legit. Like, let me just take this call. And Neo, as an org, as an entity, has single-handedly, I think, changed the trajectory of my career for sure. I mean, half of my board members came through, are either in Neo or direct, or came through a connection through Neo. Our first check came from someone in the Neo community. Um, just I can list off so many things that have come from being in Neo. And so I think that that moment of like me saying yes after the second email, like I could have just been like, oh, I could have marked it as spam or something crazy where like I wouldn't have even gotten that second email. So the fact that I was like, okay, let me at least take this call now that they follow up again, definitely changed the trajectory of my career.
I like the fact that you mentioned that you thought it was spam because I could really relate to that,
Yeah.
and I want to tell a funny story about how actually I found out about ColorStack.
Hmm.
So I actually I that's this is the exact same way how I found
Yeah.
out through it, and it was through another event. So I attended a Capital One Black and Hispanic Analyst and Product Development Summit,
Yeah.
and after the summit was over, I made a group chat with a lot of the people I connected with on
Hmm.
on LinkedIn, and
Hmm.
then in the group chat it was mentioned that you should join ColorStack. It's an amazing organization.
Yeah.
But the funny thing is about the Capital One thing, I almost didn't apply to it. And it's like almost like
Yeah.
weird to even say like how that wouldn't have led to this and then this wouldn't have
Yeah.
led to that.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
just I just found that to be a funny point to mention.
Yeah, no, for sure. It's so interesting, like the butterfly effect that people talk about, where it's like these little things just add up, and you never know what would have happened if you didn't do that first kind of catalyzing step.
Yeah. And then it goes to this question of what recommendations do you have for ColorStack members to better utilize the benefits of being a member?
Yeah, I mean, we're talking about this a lot internally, actually, about how we can make things more discoverable. So, because what we find out in surveys and just having conversations with some of our members is that like some of you don't even know certain things exist, right? Like even I mean, years ago, a lot of people didn't even know we had Fam Fridays like every month, right? Like that, and that was to us, it's weird because like that's all we think about. Like, yeah, every month is Fam Fridays, but it is important to make sure that's accessible and obvious to the average member. So I think what members can do is really just try to stay up to date on all the announcements that we share, the newsletter, and even the member profile on our platform, on our web platform. I think just like taking a glance at all those things at least once a week, just to see, what are the different opportunities, what are different things. 100%. We also have, like our member directory where you can connect with people by certain filters. We just launched a resource database, so sharing resources, upvoting resources. Um, the company's database where people can share reviews. That's going to be a really big thing. I think it's helpful to share that for other members, so that they can, make decisions for themselves and what companies they want to take offers from and things like that. But at the end of the day, I think being active in Slack is going to be the biggest thing today, right? Like today, it's still the biggest driver of value where you can ask questions, answer them, meet with people, connect. Like that's still the biggest thing that um members can do and be active on to get the most value from ColorStack.
Yeah, definitely. It's gonna be a process to try to retain attention in certain ways. And I was just thinking of
Yeah.
it. You should make like a weekly or monthly podcast just to update members about what's going on,
Yeah.
try to fill them in, and like
Yeah.
have
That
panelists with students.
Yeah, that is definitely been an idea for at least a couple of years now. I even funny enough, I have Riverside FM up open in my tabs because that's what I was going to use to do the podcast recording. It's literally like it makes sense and we should do it. It's just a matter of like, do we have the time to not only record, but do the management of like, okay, editing video, uploading, marketing, like all that stuff. So I would say it's gonna come out this year.
That's a great thing to hear.
Yeah.
And then it goes to this of what methods did you use to determine the opportunity cost of taking the calculated risk to continue with ColorStack in the early stages of the company?
Um, to start the company or just as after starting it and like growing it.
So once you decided I want to continue with this, I'm gonna focus on this. But what were the opportunity costs that you had to weigh?
Oh yeah. I mean, I had an offer. I accepted an offer at Google in their APM program, Associate Product Management, and so that compensation is already super healthy. Plus the stock appreciation from the past 3 years, 4 years with all the AI stuff. Like, there's the opportunity cost in that moment, and there's the opportunity cost of like the compound interest of choosing one over the other, right? So I probably could have been a millionaire by now. But um I'm not really driven by money. I think money's a tool. Um, I think I think starting a company and having that freedom has its own value, even if I'm not making all the money in the world. So starting a company, having my own freedom, being able to work on a problem that I care about every day. One of the things that I didn't that one of the reasons why it was easier for me to give up that opportunity was because even when I did the internships at Google and Two Sigma, I was always working on things on the side. So like my day job never fulfilled me. And so I would have lived a life if I went into the industry where I was doing whatever I had to do day to day, but I probably would have still been working on things on the side. And so this, like with ColorStack, I get fulfilled by what I do during the day. And so when I go home or when I'm done, I can just play video games or go play golf or like whatever. Like I can just have fun versus like fun being doing the things that I actually have to that I need to like fulfill kind of my passions and fill my cup.
Yeah, I get what you mean, and I would actually say 10,000% that it's much better, in my opinion, to do what you're doing and not make. I think money is not really that important when it comes to when you're impacting people's lives. So I
Right.
would say ColorStack is definitely impacting thousands of lives, and I think that's just invaluable if you think of it, because
Yeah.
making money only does so much, and impacting people's lives to help them then do what they want to do, and then helps to their kids. It's just like the butterfly effect again, if you think of it.
Exactly.
I think that's
Exactly.
like definitely more important in many
Yeah.
aspects because it's what you love to do. And then
Yeah.
it goes to the question of what are the most important skills necessary to run a company.
Yeah, I think skills. I mean, some of the things that I feel like are core. Like you can pick up these kind of functional skills over time, but like a core thing is you have to be able to learn very quickly. So I I can pick up like anything very. That's like one of my skills. Like I'm able to really understand new things very quickly. So if I'm learning some new concept or learning a new sport, or like I can just like within a short amount of time become average. And I think if you are really good at doing that, running a company will be that much easier because you're just going to be faced with all these like new territory. You're just faced with new territory every day. Like it's like a new problem or something that you didn't learn in school or something you didn't, do in your previous career. And so very quickly, you don't have the time to then become an expert on that thing. You have to be able to become average enough to have a conversation and make a decision around it, right? So I'm not a accountant by trade or a financial whatever, but like I had to learn how to manage budgets and manage cash flow and all that stuff. And it's like I'm not an expert still to this day, but I'm good enough to make decisions, and when it comes to like back office stuff like HR, or even front office, like more program management, software development, different things like that. Like I'm not an expert on any of those things, but I know enough to have the conversation and be able to also like hire people and vet for that talent. Because if you're not experienced as an engineer, or at least enough to know if someone's BSing or not, then you might not be able to make good hires, right? You need to know enough to also like vet um, what good talent is when you're hiring. So I think being able to learn new things very quickly is important. I think that being comfortable with risk is important. I think being like the skill of, I guess, just like thinking strategically is helpful so that you're not just like focused on what's in front of you. You're trying to like string together all these like different individual activities or individual milestones or individual goals to like accomplish some broader vision. And at the end of the day, I think the number one thing is like sales. Like you're gonna be as a founder of a company, you're selling everybody on everything, meaning new employees to join you, investors to give you money, or customers to give you money, right? So it's like you're just always selling. And so core skill, if you have to do one thing, is become good at sales.
I mean, yeah, because at the end of the day, it's going to be you have to sell a product to make it a business. It has to be
Exactly.
something has to be making the money to make it a business. I mean, those
Exactly.
are all great points. Also, with the fact that knowing a little bit of everything, I've been told like by a mentor, like know enough to have a knowledgeable conversation. If you think that you could, so if also like if you're like an owner of a business, right?
Mhm.
You should know how to cook, not be the best cook, but you should know how. You should
Right.
know how to like use the register, but not be the best.
Exactly.
It goes back to just being that's why you're the owner. You're the
Yeah.
and then was there a moment you came close to considering shutting down ColorStack operations?
That is, I've never gotten that question in a podcast before. Let me think about that one. I mean, nothing, there's never been a moment where that was like a serious consideration. Um, I think there's times where I've thought about quitting myself and stepping down or whatever the case may be, like that, those thoughts. I mean, those thoughts come up ever so often just because it's a hard thing to do and you face these roadblocks and you don't get the grace that anybody else gets in the company to fail. Like the CEO and founder has to, you have so many lives that you're, responsible for taking care of in a way, right? The livelihood of people and their families. And so your decisions and any mistakes that you make, have a real impact on people's lives. And so it's like somebody else in the org can like, even if you're like an engineer, you could like break some piece of code and like maybe some part of the product isn't working for 2 minutes. I'm like, okay, that's fine. But like if the CEO does something wrong, like it's like all hell breaks loose and it's like you've, done some damage. Um, that can sometimes feel irreparable. So I think from my own perspective, I've had those moments, but not shutting ColorStack down at all. I think um we're gonna see in the next few years as like DEI kind of spend and stuff like that contracts a bit, like how if companies don't care about, or not don't care, but if companies one don't care, but also don't have the budget to really invest in this area, like we might have a different financial position that makes us forces us to operate in a different way. But I want ClosTech to be around for as long as it takes to solve this problem.
Yeah, those are all great points. And then this goes with our last question, and it's a controversial one with coders,
Mhm.
but what is the best coding language and why?
That's coding language. I will say, I mean, I haven't been writing code regularly in a while, so I'll give my opinion of what it was at the time. So at the time when I was junior year, senior year, still, in the CS program and stuff like that, I was definitely using Java all the time. I love Java. Um, and funny enough, I'll throw a curveball in there that I had a deep love for OCaml because my school did taught functional programming in OCaml, and I did one interview in the interview season in OCaml because I that was the only way I could solve the problem in my head. So um
I thought that was
yeah.
a Harvard thing, doing OCaml.
Cornell, we also did it because of Jane Street's relationship with, I think I don't know if it's because of their relationship with us or if it's the other way around. But yeah, our functional programming teacher, professor, uses OCaml.
It's used for like quantitative math, quantitative like financial like forecasting, right? OCaml.
Yeah, yeah, I'm pretty sure. I mean, I only know Jane Street is like the only company that I've heard of that uses it regularly, but yeah, a lot of the more financy type stuff.
Yeah, I mean that's amazing. And
Yeah.
that actually wraps up episode 22 of the 15-minute coffee podcast. Brandon
Cool.
Salazar, we hope you've enjoyed gaining insights from our guests and exploring the world of business with us. Don't forget to check out the podcast on our social media, the 15-minute coffee podcast on YouTube and Instagram for upcoming episodes. Till next time, stay curious and keep learning.
Sounds good.